Peace family, welcome to part 2 in my series Destroying 6 Lies About Colorism. We are on lie number 2, which is that colorism is only a black woman's problem. Now there's no doubt about it that typically when you hear colorism being discussed, it's often in reference to dark-skinned black women. But I think there's a misconception that that's really the only group that's faced with this issue in the way that it is. So in this video, I kind of want to explore beyond those parameters to show you how this does impact other groups of people, other types of people, including our brothers. Now within black society, dark-skinned black men are often looked at as desirable, as masculine and manly and whatnot. But there's another side to that coin as well. You know, there's a lot of the negative attributes that people place specifically on dark-skinned black men, and other black people place upon dark-skinned black men. So we're going to, get into that. We're going to explore, and we're going to see just how much this can affect our brothers and other people. So the first person I want to address or deal with is Sammy Sosa. Now, Sammy Sosa was an extremely successful baseball player. He is Dominican, and he had a good run. He had a good track record. And in more recent years, people noticed that his complexion changed. He looked totally different than when he was playing baseball. And, it's very evident, of course, that he bleached his skin. Now, a lot of people have come out and made memes and jokes and things about it, but I find it interesting that with all of the success and accolades and money and fame that he's acquired through being very skilled as an athlete, that still was not enough. On some level or what have you, he felt insecure about his complexion. He disliked his complexion, and so he sought to change it. I think that's a really big statement. I think sometimes, especially with our brothers, they may not be as vocal about how colorism impacts them, but they may show it in their actions. So with this man doing what he did to his skin, looking completely different, looking totally different, it's just really a huge statement that he saw a problem with himself being his dark skin after all that he's achieved and all that he's done. Next, I want to go to Vybz Kartel, who is a Jamaican artist, a reggae artist. And same thing, people noticed that all of a sudden he started looking totally different. His complexion totally switched up. Now, people have asked him about it. He gets very defensive and kind of pissed off when people ask him about his skin. He says some kind of crazy responses to people asking him about it. But at the end of the day, you see, again, just how, this man who could be successful, who could be well known, who could make money, his issue or one of his issues was still his complexion, was still him being dark. And he did not like that, so he sought to change it. In Jamaica, it's very common to hear about people using things like cake soap or whatnot to change the complexion of their skin. Often when skin bleaching is discussed, you will hear a lot about this happening in the Caribbean, and which is interesting because when you look at places like Jamaica, you see a very high number of black people, of course, who are of brown or darker skin complexions. And even within that society, people are still seeking to be lighter. Now, this may be a little controversial here. I know people feel the type of way about Michael Jackson and whatnot. I know that he supposedly had vitiligo and things of that nature. Now, I can't sit here and say that he did or didn't have it, okay? That's what was claimed. However, when you look at the whole picture and you see the fact that it's well documented that he had a lot of issues with certain black features, quote unquote, if you will, his nose, things of that nature. You see how he's changed his hair. Even if people was wearing curls at one point in time, he wanted to continue that. He wanted to have hair that was not like an afro. Okay. You see how much his skin changed, and his nose, and all of these sorts of things, and the cheekbones, and all of that. So to me, there's a level there of self-hate as well. Again, people will come in the comments, I'm sure, and talk about, well, he had vitiligo, that's why he was lighter. Sorry, but I'm not completely buying that. I'm not completely buying that he had vitiligo. This is why his skin ended up being white. Just not. I think that there is definitely a level of self-hate that Michael Jackson had about himself, and some of the things that most heavily identify with being black, kinky hair, brown skin, large nose. He wanted to change those things. So, debate if you will, but I think that's a heavy part of this thing. Now, let's get into some of these negative connotations that are associated with dark-skinned black men. First and foremost, criminality. People love to project criminality onto dark-skinned black men. I think a lot of people, if they were honest, would say that if there was an image of a thug, it would almost exclusively be a dark-skinned black man. Like, let's keep it a buck. But oftentimes what happens is there's an overestimation of criminality, an overestimation of violence. There is a lack of empathy oftentimes that's given to specifically dark-skinned black men. People are more willing to support dark-skinned black men being punished instead of them having therapy or having other assistance. So, this really runs deep. There was a study done that was measuring the brain waves of people when they were shown different images. And the study showed that black people had the same negative emotional response as white people did when they were shown images of dark-skinned black men. So again, this runs very deep. So if you have all of these negative stereotypes about black men, then there has to be exceptions, right? So who gets the exception? Well, typically much lighter skinned black men, but not even that, but often biracial men will get the exception. They will be seen as less aggressive, less threatening, less intimidating, less of a thug, less of a criminal, and definitely less of a possible rapist, if you will. We know that sex and the obsession with white women and these types of things are often placed upon dark-skinned black men, that they cannot control themselves. And so people are much more willing to believe a rape allegation against a dark-skinned black man than they're willing to believe it against anybody else. And included in that would be biracial men. So again, colorism, us taking these negative things that have been pushed about us by the dominant society and internalizing them and using them against each other and seeing each other in these type of negative ways. So, these are definitely negative effects that dark-skinned black men get more than anybody else. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned how some brothers may not be as verbal about colorism, but it may show in their actions. I think this story here is a good example of that. Earlier this year, you had this NFL player, Jalil Ade, who had a video that went viral. It was with him and his wife, who was white, and other couples who were black men and non-black women, and they were toasting to more light-skinned babies. There was kind of like a firestorm after that. A lot of people had a lot of things to say, a lot of videos and things made about it. And so this is a good example, because you may not hear as many brothers outright say, I want light-skinned babies, but it will show in the women that they choose to have children with. Okay, so a lot, and often, sadly, this is a lot of times dark-skinned black men where you see this kind of thing being perpetuated. So in this case, it was verbally expressed in the toast, but again, showing in the woman that he chose to have children and have a family with. Clearly, to me, he did not want to pass on his dark skin to his child. And as you see in the picture here, his child is a very light-skinned baby. So this is exactly what I mean when I say that, sometimes it's not about being as verbal as you may hear some black women say, I want a light-skinned baby, but it may show more so in the actions. And these, again, are impacts and effects of colorism that happen in our community. I'm not saying this is the case with every single dark-skinned black man who's with a non-black woman or whatever the case may be. But to me, it's very clear that this is a part of the overall story. Like, that if you have a child with this woman, you have a much higher likelihood that your child will not be as dark as you, that your child will not look like you. Okay. Then after that, you kind of had a copycat situation with this guy, Terrence Ross, who's an NBA player for the Orlando Magic. Him and his white wife put up a post cheering to more light-skinned babies. And so again, it's the same type of philosophy, the light-skinned baby, the light-skinned part being the prize, not cheers to a healthy baby, not cheers to a happy baby, but cheers to more light-skinned babies. So that comes across as that is the most important part of that sentence. And I think that's how a lot of people regarded him saying that. So yeah, to me, there's just another example of how colorism may impact black men. And they may not say it in a certain type of way, but they may say it in other ways and with their actions. You have people even like Matthew Knowles, who's recently been kind of outspoken about colorism, saying that he pursued Beyonce's mom, Tina Knowles, because she was so light, actually thinking she was a white woman. So yeah, there's just a huge misconception that, black men are not affected or impacted by colorism, and that's just not true. You have brothers who do bleach their skin. Now, that may not be as common as it is here in America as it is in other regions where they may bleach their skin more. You may see it here among, some of the homosexual black males, but nonetheless, you have a lot of brothers impacted and affected by colorism, even if they're not bleaching their skin. But again, along with that misconception that this is just a black woman's issue, you look at many other places around the world. You look at India, and skin bleaching is very common there. They have a caste system which directly connects to color. The darker you are, the darker your complexion, the lower down on the caste system that you are. Of course, the Bollywood industry is very big there, and many of the actors and actresses are very light complexioned, and the larger population, of course, wants to look like those actors and actresses. They want to be much lighter. So it's not something, that's as taboo, I would say, as some other places around the world where this happens. But because of that caste system, many people know, hey, for me to try to move up in life or perhaps get somewhere different, maybe I should bleach my skin. But beyond India, you have throughout Asia, you have in China, you have Korea, where skin lightening, skin whitening, skin bleaching is still something that's very common. And we may see them as being very pale, but they want to be even paler. They want their skin to be even more porcelain. They want to be even whiter. The geishas, painting their faces white because that was seen as more desirable. That was seen as more beautiful. Okay, so again, the misconception, this is just a dark-skinned black woman's problem, is false. We do tend to hypersexualize dark-skinned black men. That does not mean, though, that they are not affected and impacted by colorism. All right, so we gotta sometimes look deeper than the surface in order to understand, how these things have conditioned us and why things are kind of the way that they are. So again, colorism is not just a black woman's problem. All right. Now, family, I love y'all, appreciate y'all. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in part 3.